My name is Clara James. I'm 32 years old. And 2 weeks ago, I was humiliated by my own billionaire father-in-law. Inside the company boardroom I helped build. From scratch. He gave me 5 minutes to clear my desk. In front of every executive who had ever worked under me. Every colleague who had ever trusted me. Every person who had ever looked up to me in that glass tower. My husband sat there, completely silent. Like a statue carved from cowardice. I remember the echo of my heels as I walked out. The sound bouncing off those pristine marble floors, and the way his voice shook when he said, "You're done here." Not with regret. Not with sadness. With satisfaction. If you've ever been betrayed by someone you trusted, if you've ever felt the floor disappear beneath your feet, while everyone you thought cared about you just watched, this story is for you. Please like this video. Subscribe for more true stories like this one. And tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I would genuinely love to know. I need to know I'm not alone in this. Let me take you back to the beginning. Because you need to understand how deep this betrayal cuts. You need to understand what I gave to that company. What I sacrificed. What I bled for. I was a senior marketing executive at Alden Industries, one of the most prestigious firms in the city. That corner office on the 43rd floor. I earned it. Every late night, every missed dinner, every holiday spent reviewing campaigns while everyone else was with their families. I was loyal. God, I was so loyal. It makes me sick to think about it now. I was driven in a way that scared some people. I saw colleagues burn out and leave, and I just kept pushing, kept climbing, kept proving myself over and over again because I knew what they were all whispering behind my back. The whispers started almost immediately after I married into the family. She only got promoted because she's sleeping with the boss's son. Nepotism at its finest. Must be nice to have connections. They didn't see the extra hours I put in. They didn't see how I worked, twice as hard as anyone else, just to prove that I deserved to be there. That my last name, my marriage, had nothing to do with my capabilities. I brought in 3 of our biggest clients in 18 months. 3 accounts that generated over 40 million in revenue. But sure, tell me again how I only got where I was because of who I married. My husband, Daniel Alden, he was the CEO's son, the golden child, the heir apparent. When we met, he seemed different from his father, warmer, more human. He told me he wanted to build something meaningful, that he wasn't interested in the cold corporate games his father played. I believed him. God help me. I believed every word. We got married in a ceremony his father controlled, down to the color of the napkins. I should have seen the signs then. I should have noticed how Daniel never contradicted his father, never stood up for what we wanted, never pushed back even once. But I was in love. Or at least I thought I was. Maybe I was just in love with the idea of being part of something bigger than myself. The Alden family represented legacy, power, influence, and I genuinely respected the business his father had built, even if I didn't respect the man himself. Mr. Alden was cold in a way that made ice seem warm. He was controlling, manipulative, always testing people, like we were lab rats in some experiment only he understood. Every conversation with him felt like a test I didn't know I was taking. Every achievement I brought to him was met with a slight nod. Never a genuine word of praise. Just this look that said, adequate, but not impressive. He once told me, over scotch in his private office, while I presented our quarterly numbers, in business, family is a liability, Clara. Emotions make you weak. Loyalty makes you blind. I laughed it off at the time. Thought he was just being provocative, sharing some hard-won wisdom from decades in the corporate world. I should have known he meant me. I should have understood that I was the liability he was talking about, that my loyalty was the blindness he intended to exploit. The real trouble started about 6 months ago, when she arrived. Nia Richardson, the father-in-law's new golden hire, brought in as a senior strategist, with a salary that made even the veteran executives blink. She was brilliant. I'll give her that. Ivy League education, experience, at Fortune 500 companies, a smile that could disarm anyone, and a mind that could calculate angles faster than most people could calculate tips. Mr. Alden introduced her at a company-wide meeting, with more enthusiasm than I'd ever heard from him. Nia represents the future of this company, he said, his hand on her shoulder like a proud father. She's going to help us evolve. I tried to welcome her. I really did. I took her to lunch her first week, showed her the ropes, introduced her to key people in every department. I wanted to be the kind of leader who lifted other women up, who didn't see every talented female as competition. But something was off from the beginning. The way she looked at my office. The way she asked questions about my projects that felt less like curiosity and more like reconnaissance. The way she smiled at Mr. Alden, like they shared secrets I wasn't privy to. The meetings started shifting. Subtly at first. Then obviously, I'd present an idea in a strategy session, and it would be met with polite nods and, "We'll consider it." 2 weeks later, Nia would present virtually the same concept, with minor tweaks. And suddenly, it was genius, innovative, exactly what the company needed. My reports started going missing. Digital files I'd submitted would somehow not be in the system. Technical glitches, they said. Must have been user error. I'd been using that system for 6 years without a single glitch, but suddenly I couldn't properly upload a document. My husband grew distant during this time. Daniel started coming home later, leaving earlier, buried in his phone during the rare dinners we shared. When I tried to talk to him about what was happening at work, about the strange way I was being sidelined, he'd brush it off. "You're being paranoid. Clara, Dad's just excited about new talent. It doesn't diminish what you've done. Maybe you're feeling threatened and reading too much into normal business decisions." He made me feel crazy. He made me doubt my own perception of reality. And that might be the cruelest part of this entire story. Meanwhile, his father's praise for Nia became increasingly public. In executive meetings, at company events, in emails that were CC'd to the entire leadership team. Nia's insights on the Morrison account were invaluable. Nia's strategic thinking is exactly what we need for the next quarter. My name, Neem, which used to appear regularly in these communications, vanished like I'd never existed. I'd walk into meetings and find my usual seat had been taken, the seating chart somehow rearranged, small humiliations designed to make me question my place. The pain of being slowly erased is different from sudden rejection. It's insidious. It creeps into your mind at 3 a.m. when you can't sleep. You start questioning everything. Did I really earn those promotions? Or was it nepotism? Are my ideas actually good? Or have people just been humoring me? Do I deserve to be here at all? That's what they wanted. They wanted me to doubt myself so thoroughly that when they finally pushed me out, I'd go quietly, grateful they'd tolerated me as long as they had. I remember one particularly brutal week where I'd prepared an entire campaign for a luxury automotive client. I'd spent 3 weeks on it, worked with designers, copywriters, media buyers. It was good work, maybe the best I'd ever done. I presented it in the weekly executive meeting, walked them through every element, showed them the projected ROI. Mr. Alden listened without expression, then said, "We'll revisit this." That was it. No feedback, no questions, just dismissal. 4 days later, Nia presented what was essentially my campaign with a few cosmetic changes. Different color scheme, slightly altered tagline. But the strategy, the media buy, the entire approach was mine. And Mr. Alden loved it. He actually used the word brilliant. He told her she had a real future at the company. He asked Daniel to take her to lunch to discuss her career trajectory. I sat there, my hands clenched under the table so hard my nails drew blood, and said nothing. Because what could I say? That she'd stolen my work? I'd sound petty, jealous, exactly like the nepotism hire they all thought I was. Daniel took her to lunch. My husband took the woman who was systematically destroying my career to lunch. And when I asked him about it that night, he acted like I was being unreasonable. "It was a professional lunch, Clara. Dad asked me to. What was I supposed to do? Refuse?" Yes, I thought. Yes, you were supposed to refuse. You were supposed to stand up for your wife. But I didn't say it out loud. I was so tired of fighting, so exhausted from trying to prove myself, so worn down from being gaslit by everyone around me. Then came the overheard conversation that confirmed my worst fears. I was working late, as usual, trying to prove my worth through sheer volume of excellent work. It was past midnight, and I'd stayed to finish a presentation for a potential client, a major pharmaceutical company that could bring in 50 million over 5 years. I was walking past the executive conference room, the small one near Mr. Alden's office, when I heard voices. The door was slightly ajar, and I recognized them immediately. Mr. Alden, Daniel, and 2 board members. The reshuffle needs to happen before the end of the quarter, Mr. Alden was saying. His voice had that cold, efficient tone he used when discussing business strategy, like he was talking about reorganizing file cabinets instead of people's lives. We need to make room for real talent, for people who are here on merit rather than marriage certificates. Someone laughed. One of the board members, probably Harrison, who'd never liked me. How do you want to handle the optics? He asked. The team seems to respect her. The team respects stability in their paychecks, Mr. Alden replied. Once we make it clear she's out, they'll fall in line. They always do. Nia is ready to absorb her accounts and her responsibilities. She's been shadowing the work for months now. Months. She'd been positioned as my replacement for months while I smiled at her, mentored her, treated her like a colleague. My stomach turned into a knot of ice and fire simultaneously. But it was Daniel's voice that destroyed me. My husband, the man who shared my bed, who'd promised to stand by me, who'd vowed in front of everyone we knew to be my partner. What do you need from me? He asked. Not, is this really necessary? Not, can we find another solution? Just complete, immediate compliance. Stay quiet and support the decision, his father instructed. She'll look to you for defense, and you need to offer none. It'll be cleaner that way. Quicker. Like removing a bandage. Understood, Daniel said. Just like that. One word that ended our marriage. Ended any illusion I'd had about his character. Ended everything. I stood in that hallway, in the dark, hand pressed against my mouth to keep from making a sound, and felt my entire world collapse. They weren't just planning to demote me. They were planning to destroy me, to erase me from the company I'd given 6 years of my life to. And my own husband was complicit. Worse than complicit. He was cooperative. Eager, even. I didn't sleep that night. Or the next. Or the one after that. I kept showing up to work. Kept doing my job. At the highest level I could manage. Because what else was I supposed to do? Quit. And prove them right. Confront them. And accelerate whatever timeline they'd established. I felt like I was drowning, while everyone around me pretended not to notice the water. My team started looking at me with pity, which meant the rumors had already spread through the office. Everyone knew what was coming, except, officially, me. The pain of those weeks was excruciating, in a way I can't fully articulate. Physical pain. You can treat. You can take medicine, rest, heal. But this kind of pain, the pain of betrayal, of humiliation, of watching your life dismantle in slow motion while you're powerless to stop it, that pain lives in your bones. It wakes you up at night. It follows you through every moment of every day. You smile at people and wonder if they're in on it. You answer emails and wonder if anyone's even reading them. You exist in this strange limbo where you're still technically employed, but already gone. Every morning I'd stand in front of my closet and put on armor. That's what my work clothes became. Armor. The most professional suit I owned. The highest heels. Perfect makeup to hide the sleepless nights, and the crying I did in my car before entering the building. Hair pulled back in a severe bun that said I was serious, competent, not to be dismissed. And every morning I'd look at myself in the mirror and give myself a pep talk. You've got this. You're strong. You're capable. They can't break you unless you let them. No, but they were breaking me. Slowly, methodically, deliberately. And the worst part was that I had to go home every night to one of the people orchestrating it. Daniel would be there, watching television, or working on his laptop, and he'd ask me about my day like everything was normal, like he wasn't counting down the days until his father destroyed me. I wanted to scream at him, to demand he tell me the truth, to force him to look me in the eye and admit what he was doing. But some part of me wasn't ready to hear it confirmed. Some part of me was still clinging to the possibility that I'd misunderstood, that there was some explanation, that the man I'd married wasn't actually a coward who'd betray me for his father's approval. I started having panic attacks, real ones, not just anxiety. I'd be in the middle of a meeting, and suddenly I couldn't breathe. My vision would narrow. My heart would pound so hard, I thought I was dying. I'd excuse myself, lock myself in a bathroom stall, and try to remember the breathing exercises my therapist had taught me years ago. In through the nose for 4 counts. Hold for 7. Out through the mouth. For 8. Over and over. Until the world stopped spinning. I lost weight because I couldn't eat. Food tasted like ash. My clothes started hanging off me. And people noticed, but no one said anything because what could they say? I'd catch glimpses of myself in the reflective glass of the office windows and barely recognize the woman staring back. Hollow eyes, sharp cheekbones, a brittleness that hadn't been there 6 months ago. My team noticed. Marcus started bringing me coffee in the mornings, the good kind from the place 3 blocks away that I liked. Sarah would leave little notes on my desk, encouraging quotes or funny memes. Tom would stay late with me, so I wouldn't be alone in the office after dark. They knew something was wrong, even if they didn't know the full extent. And their kindness made it worse somehow, because I knew that when I fell, I'd be dragging them down with me. They'd backed the wrong horse by being loyal to me, and in corporate America, that's a mistake that gets punished. Then came that Friday, 2 weeks ago, though it feels like a lifetime. I was called to the main boardroom. At 3 o'clock, the executive boardroom, the one reserved for major announcements and board meetings. The one with glass walls, overlooking the city skyline, where you could see all the way to the harbour on clear days. The marble floors were imported from Italy, I'd heard, and the leather chairs were custom-made, each one costing more than I'd made in my first year at the company. The mahogany table was massive, could seat 30 people comfortably, and had been polished to such a shine you could see your reflection in it. When I walked in, I knew. The setup told me everything. The entire leadership team was there. Every executive, every department head, every senior manager, 23 people sitting around that enormous table, and they all went silent when I entered. The kind of silence that's louder than noise. The kind of silence that screams. Mr. Alden stood at the head of the table in a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Navy blue, perfectly tailored, with a red tie that made him look presidential, powerful, in control. And behind him, I noticed 2 security guards, not the regular lobby security, who knew my name, and smiled when I came in each morning. These were different guys, bigger, with the kind of stance that said they were ready for trouble. Security. Like I was a threat. Like I was dangerous. My husband sat 4 seats down from his father, studying his hands like they were the most fascinating things he'd ever seen. His face was pale, and I could see a muscle jumping in his jaw. He wouldn't look at me, couldn't look at me. And in that moment, whatever small piece of love I'd still carried for him died completely. When you can't even look at your spouse while she's being executed professionally, you don't deserve to call yourself a husband. Nia sat across from where I'd been directed to stand, and there was something in her expression that made my blood boil. Not quite satisfaction, but close. Vindication, maybe. Like she'd won a competition I hadn't known we were having. She was wearing a burgundy dress I'd complimented her on once, and I wondered if she'd chosen it deliberately. A small psychological victory to add to the bigger one. Mr. Alden didn't waste time with pleasantries. He'd never been one for unnecessary words, and I suppose he saw no reason to start then. He looked at me with those cold blue eyes, the same eyes Daniel had inherited, and said words I'll hear until the day I die. Clara, you have 5 minutes to clear your desk. The room was so quiet I could hear the ventilation system humming. Someone's phone buzzed, and they silenced it immediately, the sound abnormally loud in the silence. I felt every eye on me, felt the weight of their collective discomfort and curiosity. Some of them looked away, suddenly finding the table, or their notepads incredibly interesting. Some watched with undisguised interest, like this was entertainment, a spectacle they'd tell their spouses about over dinner. You'll never guess what happened at work today. I'm sorry, I said, though I'd heard him perfectly. Some part of me needed him to say it again, to confirm that this was really happening, that I wasn't having some sort of stress-induced hallucination. Your employment with Alden Industries is terminated, effective immediately, he continued, his voice perfectly steady, perfectly professional. He might as well have been reading stock prices, or discussing the weather. You have 5 minutes to collect personal items from your office. These gentlemen will escort you. He gestured to the security guards, like I was a criminal, like I'd embezzled funds or committed corporate espionage, instead of just being inconvenient to his plans. On what grounds? I asked. My voice shook. I hated that it shook. Hated giving him the satisfaction of seeing my pain. but I couldn't control it. 6 years of exemplary service, and I deserve to at least know why. I've exceeded every target, brought in major accounts, built a team that's consistently top performing. What possible justification? This isn't a negotiation, he interrupted, holding up one hand, like I was a child who'd spoken out of turn. The decision is final. Your severance package will be standard, and you'll be required to sign an NDA before receiving it. 5 minutes, Clara. The clock is ticking. I looked around the table then, at all these people I'd worked with, strategized with, celebrated victories with. Jennifer, from legal, wouldn't meet my eyes. Harrison, the board member, was actually smiling slightly, like he'd been waiting for this moment. Catherine from HR looked uncomfortable, but not surprised, which meant she'd known, had probably prepared all the termination paperwork, days or weeks ago. They'd all known. This entire performance had been planned, choreographed, and I was the only one who hadn't received the script. I looked at Daniel then. Really looked at him, willing him to say something, to do something, to be the man I thought I'd married. He finally met my eyes, and what I saw there wasn't anger, or even disappointment. It was relief. He was relieved this was happening, relieved he wouldn't have to pretend anymore, relieved that his father's problem was being solved, and he hadn't had to dirty his own hands. He could tell himself he hadn't actually done anything, that he'd just stayed neutral, just let nature take its course. Cowards always find ways to absolve themselves. Something crystallized in me, in that moment, something cold and clear and unbreakable. Was I humiliated? Yes. God, yes. I was standing in front of every professional peer I had, being dismissed like an intern who'd screwed up the coffee order. I was being escorted out by security, like a thief. My marriage was revealed, as the sham it had always been, right there, in front of everyone. The rumors about nepotism would be confirmed in everyone's minds. They'd say I'd finally been found out, that I'd never really deserved to be there, that blood and marriage weren't enough to save me when my incompetence caught up with me. But broken was what they expected. Broken was what they wanted. Tears, begging, maybe some dramatic scene they could use to justify their decision later. She became unstable, they'd say. It was the right call. They wanted me to confirm every sexist assumption, every nepotism accusation, every whispered doubt. They wanted me to be small. I didn't give them that. I stood up straighter, pulled my shoulders back, and smoothed down my jacket. It was my favorite one, navy blue, with silver buttons, tailored perfectly. I'd worn it the day I'd closed the Richardson account, our second biggest client. I'd worn it like armor then, and I wore it like armor now. I even smiled, a small, quiet smile that I saw register as confusion on Mr. Eldon's face. He'd expected a different reaction. They all had. Thank you, I said clearly, my voice steady now. No tremor, not sarcastically, not angrily, just simply, like he'd done me a favor, and like he'd freed me rather than destroyed me. Thank you for making this so clear. And then I turned and walked toward that door, my heels clicking on the marble with the same steady rhythm they'd had when I entered. Each step echoed in that silent room, and I focused on keeping my pace measured, unhurried, not running away, not slinking out in shame, just walking out with my head high and my spine straight. Every step felt like a mile, every second stretched into infinity. I could feel their eyes following me, could imagine the thoughts running through their heads, the gossip that would spread before I even reached the elevator. Did you see her face? She didn't even fight it. I guess she knew it was coming. Maybe the rumors were true after all. But then something happened that none of us expected. As I neared the door, maybe 10 feet away from escape, I heard a chair scrape against the floor. Just one, at first. I didn't turn around. Didn't want to see who might be leaving. Maybe someone going to the bathroom. Maybe just unable to watch anymore. Maybe late for another meeting. But then, another chair moved. And another. The sound multiplied. Chairs scraping against marble. People standing. Movement where there should have been stillness. I stopped at the door, and finally looked back. Marcus Chen, my deputy director of marketing, was standing. He'd been with me for 4 years, had followed me from my previous position when I'd been promoted. Sarah Kim, our creative lead, was standing. I'd hired her fresh out of grad school when no one else would take a chance on her lack of experience. Tom Wilson, our analytics manager, was standing. I'd fought to keep him when budget cuts threatened his position 2 years ago. And then, like dominoes, like a wave, like something choreographed but entirely spontaneous, one by one, my entire team rose to their feet. Not just my direct reports. People I'd hired, people I'd mentored, people I'd fought for when budgets were tight and positions were being cut. People whose families I'd asked about, whose work I'd championed, whose careers I'd invested in when no one else bothered. Jessica from social media, David from brand strategy, Alicia from media relations, Chen from client services, Raymond from design. 12 people standing, chairs pushed back, and the sound of it echoed through that boardroom like thunder. "If she's gone, we're gone," Marcus said. His voice was steady, certain, and it cut through that boardroom like a knife. All of us. Every single one of us walks if Clara walks. I watched Mr. Alden's confident smile falter. Just for a second. Just a flicker. But I saw it. The calculation running behind his eyes. The realization that this wasn't going according to plan. 12 people standing wasn't just a symbolic gesture. 12 essential employees, most of them with active projects, client relationships, institutional knowledge that couldn't be easily replaced. 12 people who could walk out that door and leave Alden Industries scrambling. "Sit down," Mr. Alden said, his voice hard now, the professional veneer cracking. "All of you, sit down. This is not your concern." "With respect, sir, it is our concern," Sarah said, and I could hear the tremor in her voice, but she didn't sit. "Clara built this team. She hired most of us. She's the reason this department is the highest performing in the company. If you can discard her this easily, what's to stop you from doing the same to any of us? Your employment contracts prevent you from leaving without proper notice," Mr. Alden said. But Jennifer, from legal, still seated, leaned over to him and whispered something, urgently. I saw his jaw tighten, saw his hands clench on the back of his chair. Later, I found out what she'd said. "Sir, we have a problem. Most of them have resignation clauses that allow for immediate departure under certain circumstances, including hostile work environment or fundamental changes in management structure. If they all walk and claim constructive dismissal, we're looking at potential breaches on 6 major accounts and possible lawsuits from 3 clients for failure to deliver on contractual obligations. The Morrison account alone has a penalty clause of $2 million if we don't deliver by the end of next month. Clara's team is running that project. And the power in that room shifted. Not dramatically, not like in the movies, where the villain is suddenly defeated and everyone cheers, but subtly, unmistakably. Mr. Alden was no longer completely in control, and everyone could feel it. The other executives were exchanging glances, clearly wondering what this meant for them, for the company, for the carefully orchestrated transition they'd been part of. Nia's satisfied expression vanished, replaced by something that looked like panic. She'd been promised Clara's position, her team, her accounts. But you can't lead a team that doesn't exist. Daniel finally looked up, his face pale, his eyes wide. I think it was the first time he'd realized that I wasn't alone, that I'd built something real, that people valued me for reasons that had nothing to do with my last name or who I'd married. And I think, in that moment, he finally understood what he was losing. Not just a wife, but someone who'd been respected, valued, followed. Someone he'd never really known at all. "We have contracts," Harrison said, his voice less confident now. "Obligations. You can't all just leave." "Watch us," Tom said simply. I didn't wait to see what would happen next. Part of me wanted to stay, wanted to watch Mr. Alden scramble, wanted to see him forced to either back down or lose a quarter of his marketing department in one afternoon. But a bigger part of me just wanted out. I wanted to be away from that building, those people, that entire toxic environment that had consumed 6 years of my life. I gave my team, my people, a nod of gratitude that I hoped conveyed everything I felt and couldn't say. "Thank you. I'm sorry. You don't have to do this. But also, thank you for doing this. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for standing up when the person who should have stood up for me sat silent. And then I left. I walked out of that boardroom, down the hall to my office, with those security guards trailing me, like I might steal the furniture or set fire to the filing cabinets. My office looked the same as it always did. The city view that I'd spent so many late nights staring at. The desk where I'd worked until my eyes burned, and my back ached. The chair where I'd sat through countless video conferences. The bookshelf full of marketing texts and industry journals, and a few personal items. I packed quickly. 5 minutes isn't much time to pack up 6 years of your life. A photo of my mother, who'd passed away 3 years ago from cancer, and who would have told me to burn the whole place down. She'd never liked Daniel, had said he was too soft, too much under his father's influence. I should have listened to her. A small succulent plant Sarah had given me on my first day as a senior executive, somehow still alive, despite my neglect. My favorite mug, the one that said, "Nevertheless," she persisted. Some files that were technically mine, notes from projects I'd started before I'd even worked there, ideas I'd had that weren't company property. The security guards watched my every move, like I might somehow smuggle out trade secrets in a coffee mug or a plant. One of them kept his hand near his belt, where I assumed he had pepper spray or a weapon. Like I was dangerous. Like a woman packing her personal items with some kind of threat that required armed supervision. 5 minutes. That's all it took to erase 6 years. I looked around my office one last time, at the space that had been mine, that I'd decorated carefully, that I'd spent more waking hours in than my own home, and I felt nothing. No nostalgia, no regret, just numbness, and a desperate desire to be gone. The walk through the office to the elevators was worse than the boardroom had been. People stood at their cubicles, watching. Some looked sympathetic. Some looked uncomfortable. Some looked like they'd known this was coming, and were just relieved it wasn't them. The junior staff, the people who didn't know me well, they looked curious, mostly. Who was this woman being escorted out by security? What had she done? I held my box of belongings and kept my eyes forward, focused on the elevator bank at the end of the floor. 30 feet, 20 feet, 10. The elevator couldn't come fast enough. When it finally dinged, and the doors opened, I stepped inside and turned around. The security guards stayed in the hallway, apparently confident I couldn't cause any trouble between the 43rd floor and the lobby. As the doors started to close, I saw Marcus and Sarah and Tom and the others emerging from the boardroom. They saw me, and Sarah raised her hand in a small wave. And then the doors closed, and I was alone in a steel box, descending. I made it to the lobby, through the marble atrium with the fountain, and the expensive art, and the security desk where James, the guard I'd chatted with every morning for 6 years, wouldn't meet my eyes. Through the revolving doors, out onto the street, where the afternoon sun was too bright, and the noise of traffic was too loud, and everything felt surreal, and sharp, and wrong. I made it half a block before I had to stop. There was a small park, really just a few benches and some trees, and I sat down on the nearest bench and let myself break. Not crying. Not yet. Just sitting there, holding my pathetic box of belongings, shaking. My hands were trembling so badly, I nearly dropped the box. My breath was coming in short gasps. The panic attack I'd been holding off for the last hour crashed over me like a wave, and I couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't do anything but sit there and shake. People walked past me. Busy professionals heading back to their offices after late lunches. Delivery people rushing to their next stop. Tourists taking photos. No one stopped. No one asked if I was okay. I was just another person having a breakdown in public. And in this city, that was too common to warrant attention. My phone started ringing. Daniel. I looked at his name on the screen and felt nothing but contempt. He was calling now? Now that it was done? Now that he was safely away from his father? What could he possibly say that would matter? I declined the call. He called again. Declined. Again. I turned off my phone. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the sun to move, for the shadows to shift. Long enough for my shaking to stop, and my breathing to even out. Long enough to transition from shock to pain, to anger, to something else. Something colder. Something harder. My phone vibrated, even though it was off, which meant it was restarting. When it came back on, I had 17 missed calls. 5 from Daniel. 3 from numbers I didn't recognize. And 9 from my team. There were texts too. So many texts, the notifications filled my screen. Marcus. We all walked. Every one of us. Are you okay? Sarah. Please call me. We're with you. You should have seen his face when we left. Priceless. Jessica. Legal is freaking out. Alden is threatening lawsuits. We don't care. We're with you. They'd done it. They'd actually walked out. 12 people had quit their jobs in solidarity with me, had thrown away their salaries and benefits, and job security to make a point. The magnitude of it hit me, like a physical blow. They'd sacrificed for me. They'd risked their careers for me. And I'd left without them. I called Marcus. He answered on the first ring. Clara, thank God. Are you okay? You walked, I said. My voice sounded strange, hoarse. You all walked. Of course we walked. Did you think we'd stay after that? After watching them do that to you? But your jobs. Screw the jobs, he said. And I'd never heard Marcus swear before. He was usually so professional, so controlled. Clara, you've had our backs for years. You fought for every one of us. Did you really think we'd abandon you now? I started crying then. Not the quiet, controlled tears I'd been holding back. Real crying. The kind that comes from somewhere deep and painful. Relief and gratitude and guilt, all mixed together. I'm so sorry, I said. I'm so sorry you're all caught up in this. Don't apologize. Sarah's voice came through. She must have been with Marcus. This isn't your fault. They were always going to do this. We just made sure they paid a price for it. No. What happens now? I asked. Now. Tom's voice. They were all together somewhere, and I was alone on a park bench with a box of belongings. Now we figure it out. Together. But first, tell us where you are, and we're coming to get you. I told them. They arrived 20 minutes later, all 12 of them, crowding around that park bench like a protective wall. Sarah hugged me so hard, I couldn't breathe. Marcus took the box from my hands, because I was still shaking. Tom just stood there, with his arms crossed, looking furious on my behalf. They'd all walked out. They'd actually done it. Left their desks in the middle of the afternoon, grabbed their personal items, and walked out of Alden Industries together. You should have seen it, Jessica said. And despite everything, there was a hint of satisfaction in her voice. After you left, Alden tried to backtrack, said we were being emotional, making rash decisions we'd regret. Told us to sit down and we could discuss this like professionals. I told him that professionals don't ambush people in boardrooms with security guards. David added. That professionals don't humiliate loyal employees. That if this is how Alden Industries treats its best people, we wanted no part of it. He threatened us, Alicia said. Said we'd never work in this industry again. Said he had connections everywhere, and he'd make sure we were blacklisted. My stomach dropped. Oh God, what have I done? Your careers. Stop, Marcus said firmly. Just stop. He was bluffing. And even if he wasn't, we made our choice. With our eyes open. Every single one of us chose to walk. You didn't force us. You didn't even ask us. We did it because it was the right thing to do. Legal is already panicking, Chen added. Before I left, I heard Jennifer on the phone with the Morrison account. They want to know who's going to finish their campaign. Turns out, Nia has no idea what we've been working on. She's been so busy positioning herself to take over that she never actually learned the work. The Henderson project is due in 2 weeks, Raymond said. The Blackwell launch is next month. The Steinberg rebranding is in the middle of implementation. Alden just lost the entire team, managing his 3 biggest active accounts. He's drowning, and he knows it. There was a grim satisfaction in hearing this, but it was overshadowed by guilt and fear. But what about you all? Your mortgages, your families, your... Already handled, Sarah interrupted. We talked in the elevator. We're starting our own firm. All of us. We've got the talent, the experience, the client relationships. We were carrying that company anyway. Why not carry ourselves instead? I stared at her. You can't be serious. Completely serious, Marcus said. We've already got a name picked out. Phoenix Strategies. Rising from the ashes and all that. Tom's already looking at office space we can afford short term. Jessica's husband is a lawyer. He's going to help us with the incorporation paperwork. We've got about 6 weeks of runway between our savings, and we're betting that at least some of our clients will follow us. That's insane, I said. But even as I said it, something was stirring in my chest. Not hope, not yet, but something. A possibility, a flicker of light in the darkness. Maybe, Tom said with a shrug. But working for people who treat us like that was also insane. At least this way, we control our own destiny. It's... They looked at me expectantly, and I realized what they were asking without asking. They wanted me to lead them. They'd walked out for me, and now they wanted me to help them build something new. The responsibility of it was terrifying. 12 people with families and mortgages and lives depending on me, not just for vindication, but for their livelihoods. I don't know if I can, I said honestly. I don't know if I have anything left. You do, Sarah said quietly. I've watched you lead us for 4 years. I've seen you pull off miracles. I've seen you turn failing accounts into success stories. You have more left than you think. My phone rang again. Daniel. Still calling. Still trying to explain, or apologize, or whatever he thought he could say to fix this. I looked at his name on the screen, and made a decision. Phoenix Strategies. I said. I like it. Let's do it. The cheer that went up from my team, my former team, my new partners, drew stares from people walking past. We probably looked crazy. 12 people in business clothes, celebrating in a park in the middle of a Friday afternoon. But I didn't care. For the first time since I'd walked out of that boardroom, I felt something other than pain. I felt purpose. The next few weeks were brutal, in ways I couldn't have anticipated. Going home that night to the apartment I shared with Daniel was one of the hardest things I've ever done. He was waiting in the living room, sitting in the dark like some tragic figure from a movie. When I walked in, he stood up immediately. Clara, please, let me explain. Don't, I said. I didn't have the energy to fight. I didn't have the energy to listen to excuses. I just wanted to pack a bag and leave. Just don't. My father, he didn't give me a choice. I laughed then. A harsh sound that didn't sound like me. He gave you exactly a choice. You chose him. You chose your inheritance, and your position, and your father's approval over your wife. That was a choice, Daniel. Own it. I'm sorry, he said. And he actually looked like he meant it. There were tears in his eyes. I'm so sorry. I was weak. I should have stood up for you. I should have. You should have done a lot of things, I agreed. But you didn't. And now, I need you to do one thing for me. I need you to get out of my way while I pack. He did. He stood there watching, while I threw clothes into a suitcase, grabbed my toiletries, took the few things that mattered to me, my mother's jewelry box, photo albums, the blanket my grandmother had made. I could come back for the rest later, or never. Most of it didn't matter anyway. Where will you go? He asked. That's not your concern anymore, I said. Sarah had already offered me her guest room, and I'd accepted. I couldn't stay here. Couldn't sleep in a bed I'd shared with someone who'd betrayed me so completely. I love you, he said as I headed for the door. I stopped, looked back at him. No, you don't. You love the version of me that fit into your life without causing problems. You love the version of me that made you look good and didn't challenge your father. You never loved the real me, because the real me would never have tolerated what you did. I left, walked out of that apartment, and didn't look back. Cried in my car for 20 minutes before I could drive. Showed up at Sarah's place with red eyes, and a suitcase, and a heart that felt like it had been put through a shredder. But I showed up. The next morning, Saturday, we all met at a coffee shop downtown. 12 newly unemployed marketers with our laptops and our ambition, and absolutely no idea what we were doing. Tom had found a potential office space, a former startup's headquarters that had gone under. It was cheap because it was small, and in a less desirable area, but it was something. We need to move fast, Marcus said. We need to incorporate, set up accounts, build a website, and most importantly, we need to reach out to clients before Alden does damage control. He's already started, Jessica reported. She'd been monitoring social media and industry forums. There's a statement on the Alden Industries website. about organizational restructuring and exciting new directions. No mention of 12 people walking out. He's trying to control the narrative, I said. My mind was working now, shifting into the strategic mode that had made me good at my job. We need to get ahead of it. We need to reach out to our clients directly, personally, before he can poison the well. That's risky, Chen pointed out. Non-compete clauses. He could sue us for tortious interference. Let him try, I said. And I meant it. The fear that had paralyzed me in those weeks of waiting for the axe to fall was gone, burned away by anger and purpose. We're not stealing clients. We're informing people we've worked with about our new venture. If they choose to follow us, that's their decision. And besides, he can't afford a prolonged legal battle right now. Not with 3 major projects in jeopardy. We divided up the client list. Each of us took the accounts we'd worked most closely with. I took Morrison, Henderson, and Blackwell, the 3 biggest. The ones that would hurt Alden the most if they left. Morrison was first. I called Janet Morrison, the CMO, from Sarah's guest room on Saturday afternoon. My hands were shaking as I dialed, and I had to try 3 times to get the number right. Clara, she answered warmly. I was hoping you'd call. I heard something happened at Alden. Of course she'd heard. In our industry, gossip traveled faster than light. I'm no longer with Alden Industries, I said carefully. And I wanted to reach out personally, because I know we're in the middle of a critical phase of your campaign. That's an understatement, Janet said dryly. We launch in 5 weeks. I've been getting calls from Alden's office, trying to assure me everything's fine. But I know most of your team left. The team that's been working on our account for 6 months. The team that actually knows our brand. I can't discuss the details of why we left. The retangly, I said. Legal reasons. But I can tell you that my entire team has started a new firm, Phoenix Strategies, and we'd love to finish what we started, with Morrison Pharmaceuticals. There was a pause. A long one. I could hear her breathing, could imagine her weighing the risks, going with an untested startup versus staying with an established firm that had just lost its key talent. Send me a proposal, she finally said. Monday morning. Full details on how you'd handle the transition, your fee structure, timeline, everything. I'll need to present it to my board, but Clara, I hired Alden Industries because of you, because of your vision for our brand. If you're not there, I'm not sure why we'd stay. I hung up and let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. 1 down, 2 to go. Henderson was harder. Richard Henderson was old school, valued stability and reputation. He was skeptical of our new firm, concerned about our lack of infrastructure. But I'd worked with him for 3 years, had turned his declining retail chain into a success story. In the end, that history mattered. I'll give you a shot, he said. But Clara, if this doesn't work, if you can't deliver, I'm out, and you'll have burned a bridge. Understood? Understood. Understood, I said. Blackwell was the easiest and the hardest. Easy because Maria Blackwell had never liked Mr. Alden, had only worked with his firm because of me. Hard because the emotions of the day caught up with me in the middle of the call, and I started crying. Just broke down on the phone with a client. Completely unprofessional. Completely unlike me. Oh, honey, Maria said gently. What did that bastard do to you? I told her. Not everything, but enough. The humiliation, the betrayal, the way I'd been pushed out to make room for someone else. And Maria, 60-year-old CEO, who'd built her tech company from nothing, who'd fought her way through a male-dominated industry. She understood. Send me the paperwork, she said. You've got our account. And Clara? Make him regret what he did to you. The best revenge is massive success. Now, by Sunday night, we had commitments from all 3 major accounts, and 4 smaller ones. 7 clients willing to take a chance on a startup firm that didn't even officially exist yet. It was enough. Barely, but enough. We signed the lease on the office space Monday morning. It was nothing like the gleaming tower we'd left. The carpet was stained. The walls needed paint. The furniture was whatever we could cobble together from our homes and IKEA. But it was ours. We hung a hand-painted sign that said, Phoenix Strategies, and we got to work. Those first few weeks were insane. We were working 18-hour days, building infrastructure while simultaneously serving clients, setting up accounting systems while finishing marketing campaigns. hiring contractors while managing our own projects. I'd moved from Sarah's guest room to a small studio apartment I could barely afford. And I spent more time at the office than I did there anyway. Daniel kept calling, left voicemails that ranged from apologetic to angry to desperate. I didn't listen to most of them. I had a lawyer friend, draft divorce papers, had them served to him at his office. That probably wasn't kind, but kindness was a luxury I couldn't afford. He'd stood by while his father destroyed me. He didn't deserve consideration now. Mr. Alden tried intimidation first. Letters from his lawyers threatening lawsuits for breach of contract, violation of non-competes, theft of trade secrets. We'd expected this. Jessica's husband, our attorney, sent back carefully worded responses that basically said, "Try it." The non-competes were narrowly written and didn't prevent us from working in our field, just from directly soliciting Alden's clients, which we hadn't done. They'd come to us. The trade secrets claim was baseless, since we'd only taken our own work product and personal knowledge. When legal threats didn't work, he tried sabotage, started spreading rumors in industry circles that we were unstable, unprofessional, that we'd stolen from him, called our clients suggesting they'd be better off with established firms, tried to poach the few contractors we'd managed to hire. It hurt. Every rumor, every lie, every attempt to destroy what we were building hurt, but it also made me angry, and anger was fuel. I'd spent so long trying to prove I deserved my place at his company. Now I channeled all that energy into proving him wrong, into making Phoenix strategies succeed despite him. The Morrison campaign launched 6 weeks after we'd left Alden Industries. It was perfect. Better than perfect. The pharmaceutical industry took notice. We'd taken a declining brand and repositioned it brilliantly, and the sales numbers proved it. Morrison stock went up 4% in the week following our launch. Janet Morrison called me personally to say it was the best work she'd ever seen. Henderson followed 2 weeks later. Another success. Media coverage, industry buzz, tangible results. Richard Henderson referred 2 of his business associates to us. Word spread. Not about the drama of how we'd started, but about the quality of our work. By month 3, we had 11 clients. By month 6, we had 20. We hired more people, moved to a bigger office, started turning away work because we were at capacity. And Alden Industries? They were struggling. Nia, for all her credentials and Mr. Alden's faith in her, couldn't lead. She didn't have the relationships, didn't have the trust, didn't have whatever that indefinable quality is that makes people want to follow you. The team that remained was demoralized. 3 more people quit in the months after we left, including Jennifer from legal, who'd apparently been horrified by what happened. Their stock price dropped. Not catastrophically, but steadily. Projects were delayed or cancelled. Clients left. Industry publications started running stories about the troubles at Alden Industries and the mysterious mass exodus of talent. I didn't celebrate. I was too busy building something real to take pleasure in his downfall. But I won't lie and say I didn't notice. I won't pretend there wasn't a grim satisfaction in watching the man who'd humiliated me face consequences. 6 months after that Friday in the boardroom, I got a call from Jennifer, the former legal director. She'd left Alden Industries 2 months after we had, disgusted by what she'd witnessed. She was calling to warn me. Alden Industries is being acquired, she said without preamble. A venture capital firm is buying them out. Mr. Alden is being forced out as part of the deal. The board lost confidence after the stock drop and the client exodus. They're cleaning house. I sat down slowly. When? Official announcement is next week. But Clara, here's the thing. The new owners want to meet with you. They're impressed by what you've built with Phoenix. They want to discuss bringing some of Alden's remaining clients over to you, and they want to offer you a consultancy contract to help stabilize what's left. Why would I help them? I asked. Because they're paying extremely well. Because it's a chance to absorb some of Alden's best remaining accounts. And because... She paused. Because they want you in the room when they finalize the acquisition. They want Mr. Alden to see exactly who helped bring about his downfall. I should have said no. I should have been above that kind of petty revenge. But I'm human, and I was still angry, still hurt, still carrying the weight of that humiliation. So I said yes. The meeting was scheduled for a Thursday afternoon, in the same building I'd been escorted out of, in the same luxury boardroom, where I'd been fired. The irony wasn't lost on me, and I was absolutely certain it wasn't lost on the new owners either. This was a message. I dressed carefully that morning. Not armor this time. I didn't need armor anymore. I wore a burgundy dress, the same color Nia had worn that day in the boardroom, because I could be petty too. I did my makeup flawlessly, not to hide exhaustion, but to enhance confidence. My hair was down, soft waves instead of the severe bun I'd worn back then. I looked successful. I looked happy. I looked free. Sarah drove with me to the building. "You don't have to do this," she said, as we pulled up to the familiar glass tower. "You've already won. You built something amazing. You don't need their validation." I know," I said, "but I want to see his face." "Is that terrible?" "It's human," she replied. She squeezed my hand. "Go get him." Walking into that lobby felt surreal. James, the security guard who'd avoided my eyes 6 months ago, looked up, and his face broke into a genuine smile. "Miss James, or, I heard it's Miss Clara now. Dropped the Alden name?" "I did," I confirmed. I'd legally changed my name back. Wanted nothing of Daniel's family attached to me anymore. "Good for you," James said warmly. "I heard about Phoenix Strategies. My daughter's studying marketing, and she talks about you all the time. Says you're an inspiration." Fen. That caught me off guard. "Thank you, James. That means a lot." The elevator ride to the 43rd floor felt different this time. I wasn't shaking. I wasn't afraid. I was just ready. Ready to close this chapter. Ready to face the man who'd tried to destroy me, and show him exactly how much I'd survived. The boardroom looked the same. Same glass walls, same marble floors, same city skyline view. But the people were different. The venture capital team sat on one side of the table. 4 sharp-looking professionals in expensive suits. Mr. Alden sat on the other side, and the change in him was shocking. He looked old. Not just older, but diminished somehow. The confidence he'd worn like a second skin was gone. He looked tired, defeated, smaller than I remembered. Daniel sat next to him, and my ex-husband looked even worse. He'd lost weight, had dark circles under his eyes, and when he saw me walk in, he actually flinched. Nia was there too, off to the side like an afterthought. She wouldn't meet my eyes. Good. Miss Clara, the lead VC, a woman named Patricia Hernandez, stood to shake my hand. "Thank you for coming. We've heard incredible things about Phoenix Strategies." "Thank you for the invitation," I said smoothly, sitting down across from Mr. Alden. I met his eyes directly, held his gaze until he looked away. That small victory felt immense. Patricia got down to business quickly. "As you know, we're acquiring Alden Industries. The firm has been struggling, and our assessment is that the primary issue was a leadership failure and a catastrophic loss of key talent." She glanced at Mr. Alden as she said this, making sure he understood. "We're planning significant restructuring. Mr. Alden will be stepping down immediately. His son Daniel will not be taking over as planned. We're bringing in new leadership." I watched Mr. Alden's jaw tighten, watched Daniel's face crumble. This was their legacy, their family empire, and it was being taken from them. "We'd like Phoenix Strategies to absorb several of Alden's remaining clients," Patricia continued. "The ones that fit your specialty. We'd also like to contract you for 6 months to help transition the remaining staff and stabilize operations. The compensation would be substantial." She slid a folder across the table to me. I opened it. The number made my eyes widen. It was more than I'd made in 2 years at Alden Industries. I kept my face neutral, but inside I was screaming. "That's very generous," I said carefully. "But I have to ask, why me? There are plenty of consulting firms you could hire." Patricia smiled. "Because you know this company inside and out. You built the best team they ever had. And frankly, because the people still working here respect you more than they ever respected current leadership. Several employees we interviewed said they'd only stay if someone like you came back. Not to work for Alden, but to help build something better." "Mr. Alden finally spoke, his voice rough. "This is absurd. She's been gone for 6 months. She walked out. She took our best people and our best clients. And now you want to reward her." "She didn't take anything," Patricia said coolly. "According to our investigation, she was wrongfully terminated in what multiple witnesses described as a humiliating and unprofessional manner. 12 employees quit in protest because of how she was treated. Your clients left because they valued her work over your company's reputation. You drove away your best asset. Mr. Alden, this isn't a reward. This is us fixing your mistake. The satisfaction I felt hearing someone else say what I'd known all along was indescribable. Validation from a third party who had nothing to gain from lying, who'd done their due diligence and come to the same conclusion I'd been screaming silently for months. She never belonged here, Mr. Alden said, and there was venom in his voice now. She was only hired because she married my son. She was dead weight, and I removed her, as I should have done years ago. Ah, that's interesting, Patricia said, pulling out another document. Because according to performance reviews going back 6 years, Clara's departments consistently outperformed every other division in the company. Her client retention rate was 94%. Her team had the lowest turnover in the firm. She personally brought in over $120 million in new business. That's not dead weight, Mr. Alden. That's the person who was carrying your company while you took credit. I hadn't known she had those numbers. I hadn't known they'd done that deep of a dive. But hearing my achievements quantified and validated, something that had been broken inside me started to heal. Mr. Alden was silent now, his face red. Daniel was staring at the table, and I wondered what he was thinking. Did he regret his choices? Did he understand what he'd given up? What he'd betrayed? I'll need time to review the contract with my attorney, I said to Patricia, keeping my voice professional, and to discuss it with my partners. Phoenix Strategies isn't just me anymore. Of course, Patricia said. Take all the time you need. We'd be honored to work with you. I stood, gathered my things. This was it. This was closure. But before I left, I turned to Mr. Alden one more time. You gave me 5 minutes to clear my desk, I said quietly. Everyone in the room was listening, but I was only talking to him. 5 minutes to erase 6 years of loyalty and hard work. And you were right about one thing. It did remove dead weight. Just not the dead weight you thought. I looked at Daniel then, really looked at him for the first time since I'd walked out of our apartment. I loved you, I told him. I would have stood by you through anything. But you didn't even have the courage to stand by me for 5 minutes. I hope whatever you got from your father's approval was worth what you lost. He opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but I didn't wait to hear it. I'd said what I needed to say. I turned to Nia next. Good luck, I told her, and I meant it without kindness. You worked so hard to take my place. I hope it was everything you dreamed it would be. She still wouldn't look at me. She'd gotten what she wanted, my position, my office, my access to power, and it had turned to ash in her hands. She was being let go too as part of the restructuring. She'd tied herself to a sinking ship and was going down with it. I walked toward the door, my heels clicking on that marble floor one more time. But this time, I wasn't being escorted out. This time, I was leaving on my terms, with a contract offer in my hand, and my dignity intact. Patricia walked out with me. In the hallway, away from the others, she said, "That took guts. Most people would have gloated more." "I'm not most people," I said. "And honestly, I don't need to gloat. I built something real. I have a team that chose me. I have clients who trust me. His approval, or his regret, doesn't matter anymore." She smiled. "That's why we want to work with you. That kind of integrity is rare. Think about our offer. I really hope you'll say yes." I left the building for the second time, but this time was different from the first, in every way that mattered. I wasn't running. I wasn't broken. I was walking out as a successful business owner, as someone who'd been offered a contract that would secure Phoenix Strategies for years to come, as someone who'd survived her worst professional nightmare and come out stronger. Sarah was waiting in the car. "Well?" "They offered me a consulting contract. 6 months, enough money to secure our operating costs, for the next 2 years at least, and they want us to absorb 5 of Alden's clients." Sarah screamed and hugged me so hard, I couldn't breathe. "We did it. Oh my God. We actually did it. You all did it." I corrected. "If you hadn't stood up that day, if you all hadn't walked out with me, I'd be sitting in my studio apartment, feeling sorry for myself. You gave me a reason to fight." We called an emergency team meeting for that evening. All 15 of us now. We'd hired 3 more people to keep up with demand. I told them about the offer, about what it would mean for the company, about the validation we'd all received from an objective third party. So we're helping them? Marcus asked. After everything? We're not helping them, I clarified. Mr. Alden is gone. His son is gone. The entire toxic leadership structure is gone. We'd be helping the people who are left, the ones who weren't part of what happened, the junior staff who are just trying to keep their jobs, and we'd be securing our own future in the process. I'm in, Sarah said immediately. We've proven we can succeed. Now let's prove we can do it bigger. One by one, they all agreed. We took the contract. Spent the next 6 months splitting our time between our own clients and helping restructure what was left of Alden Industries. It was strange being back in that building, but it was our building now, in a way it never had been before. We weren't employees grateful for the opportunity. We were consultants, experts brought in to fix what had been broken. I saw Mr. Alden one more time during that period. He came to collect his personal items from his old office, which was now occupied by the new CEO Patricia's firm had installed. He looked diminished, defeated. He was being forced into retirement at 62, his reputation damaged, his legacy tarnished. He saw me in the hallway. For a moment we just looked at each other, and I waited to feel something. Triumph, maybe. Satisfaction at his downfall. But I felt nothing. He wasn't the monster I'd built him up to be in my head. He was just a man who'd made bad decisions and was facing the consequences. You won, he said finally. It wasn't quite an acknowledgement, not quite an apology, but it was something. No, I said. You lost. Those are different things. I walked away from him for the last time. I'd learned something important in those 6 months. Revenge doesn't heal you. Success doesn't validate you. You have to do that work yourself. You have to decide that you're worthy, regardless of who tried to tell you otherwise. You have to choose to stand up every day and build something meaningful. Not because it proves someone wrong, but because it's what you were meant to do. Phoenix Strategies thrived. By the end of that first year, we had 32 clients and a staff of 25. We moved into a beautiful office space downtown. Nothing as ostentatious as the Alden Industries Tower, but modern and bright and ours. We won industry awards. We were featured in marketing publications. Business schools started using our origin story as a case study in resilience and ethical business practices. And me? I healed. Slowly, painfully, but I healed. The divorce was finalized 8 months after I'd walked out. Daniel tried to reconcile a few times, sent flowers and letters, and showed up at my apartment once at midnight, drunk and crying. I didn't let him back in. You can't unbreak that kind of trust. He'd had his chance to stand by me, and he'd chosen to sit silent instead. I heard through the industry grapevine that he took a job at a smaller firm, no longer the heir to an empire, but just another middle management executive. Nia left the industry entirely. Last I heard, she was working in a different field, her reputation too damaged to recover. Sometimes, bad decisions follow you. I started dating again eventually. Carefully, slowly, with walls up. That took time to come down. I went to therapy to work through the betrayal, and the trauma, and the complicated feelings of having your personal and professional life destroyed simultaneously. I learned to trust again, to be vulnerable again, to believe that not everyone would abandon me when it was inconvenient to stand by me. My team became my family. We celebrated birthdays and holidays together. We supported each other through breakups and illnesses, and life's regular chaos. We built something that wasn't just a business, but a community. A place where people felt valued and heard and respected. Where no one would ever be humiliated in a boardroom, escorted out by security, made to feel small. It's been 2 years now since that Friday afternoon. 2 years since I was given 5 minutes to clear my desk. Since I walked out of that boardroom, with my head high and my heart broken. 2 years since my team stood up and changed my life. Phoenix Strategies just signed its biggest client yet, a Fortune 500 company that chose us over 3 much larger firms. We're expanding to a second office in another city. We're hiring 10 more people. We're thriving in ways I never imagined possible when I was sitting on that park bench with a box of belongings and a shattered life. And yesterday, I got an email from a young woman named Christina. She's 24, just starting her career in marketing, and she'd heard my story somewhere. She wrote to tell me that she'd just been fired from her job in a humiliating way, that she felt worthless and broken, and that hearing about Phoenix Strategies gave her hope that this wasn't the end. I wrote back immediately. Told her that the end of one thing is just the beginning of another. Told her that being dismissed doesn't define her unless she lets it. Told her that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you is actually the catalyst for the best thing. Told her to grieve, to feel her feelings, to be angry, but then to stand up and build something so successful that her old company would regret losing her. And I meant every word, because I'd lived it. Because I knew that pain could be transformed into purpose if you refused to let it destroy you. Because I'd taken the worst professional experience of my life and turned it into something beautiful. 5 minutes. That's how long it took for Mr. Alden to try to destroy my career, to humiliate me in front of everyone, to strip away the position I'd worked so hard for. But 5 minutes was also how long it took for me to discover who really stood by me. 5 minutes to see which relationships were real and which were illusions. 5 minutes to understand what I was capable of when I stopped trying to prove myself to people who would never value me. 5 minutes can change your life. It changed mine, not the way he intended. He meant to break me, to erase me, to make me disappear. Instead, he freed me. He freed me from the prison of seeking approval from people who would never give it. He freed me from a marriage that was built on sand. He freed me from the exhausting work of trying to earn a place I'd already earned 100 times over. So if you've ever been humiliated, if you've ever had someone try to make you feel small, if you've ever stood in a boardroom, or an office, or anywhere else, and been dismissed by someone who should have valued you, I want you to know something. Their opinion of you is not the truth. Their treatment of you says everything about them and nothing about your worth. And sometimes the people who try to tear you down are actually doing you the biggest favor of your life, even if it doesn't feel like it in the moment. Stand up. Dust yourself off. Find the people who see your value. Build something meaningful. And let your success be louder than their disrespect ever was. If you've ever been humiliated and came out stronger, tell me your story in the comments. I want to hear it. I need to hear it. Because we're not alone in this. And our stories matter. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more true stories, and share this with someone who needs to hear it today. Someone out there is sitting on a park bench with their life in ruins, and they need to know that this isn't the end. It's just a painful, necessary beginning. My name is Clara James. I'm 32 years old, and 2 years ago, I was humiliated by my own billionaire father-in-law inside a luxury boardroom. He thought he was ending my story. Instead, he was just helping me start a better one. Thank you for listening. And remember, 5 minutes can destroy you, or transform you. The difference is what you choose to do with minute 6.